My relationship was starting to get on the rocks, so I did the thing anyone would. I took my girlfriend for a romantic cave walkthrough. Alright, don't judge me. I'm sure I had a good reason why I decided to take her to an old abandoned mine. In fact, I was going to propose in the old abandoned mine. The date was set, and the ring safely tucked away in my pocket. The last section of the mine has a type of rock that glittered in dim light that I figured would be a good place to do the deed, even though a romantic dinner might have been a better idea. The first sign of trouble was two of our mutual friends came along, making it a double date. That's fine, I could deal with it. I could easily drop them hints to get them out of the way before I got down on one knee. When we arrived, Tabby and Jason were waiting for us out front. We decided to do a small hike to get to the entrance, and Leah was already in a mood. Her shoes and massive purse were not meant for a hike or walking around in an old mine. She refused to leave her purse in the car and claimed she didn't have any other shoes. I gave our friends a wave when I saw them and walked over to them. We stood chatting for a bit and getting caught up on each other's lives while standing outside the old mine's entrance. When Leah was off taking a smoke break, I got in close to whisper to my friends about the plan. Could you guys, give us a few minutes alone when we reach the dead end with all the nice rocks? I need to ask Leah something. I told them, hoping my hint got through.
Oh, Jamie.
Tabby started and shut up real fast. From her tone, she almost sounded sad. Maybe she wanted to get married first. No problem, we'll leave it to you. Jason butted in. With everything planned out, we were all set to go inside the cave. Leah joined us, and soon we were all walking along chatting, but Leah kept a bit silent, checking her phone pretty often, even though I doubted she had a signal. I was nervous as hell, more than I'd ever been in my entire life, and prayed I was acting natural.
Oh, I forgot, my water bottle in the car.
Tabby said suddenly. So much for acting natural. Jason nervously nodded and took her hand. I'll help you go back and look for it. Without giving us a chance to answer, they both ducked out of the cave, leaving us alone sooner than I thought.
Let's hurry up so I can get home before I miss my show.
Leah told me, taking the lead. We can always stream it later. That was not the right answer. She gave me a nasty look, and I started to wonder where my sweet girlfriend went. For a few weeks, she's been getting annoyed easier and always on her phone. It made me second-guess everything I've done, wondering what set her off. We walked in silence. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Jason encouraging me. I smiled, then my phone shut off on its own. I frowned, trying to turn it back on. I wasn't too worried when it didn't boot up right away. It looked like Leah still worked in case we needed one. I put it back in my pocket to check over later. The way to the dead end was an easy one. Just straight until we hit the three-forked path and take the left opening, then just keep walking. The other paths led to more dead ends, but none as impressive as the one we were going towards. Leah let out a sound, and I guessed her phone started to have issues. That rock looks like a dagger. I pointed out, not knowing what to say or how to start as we walked into the entranceway of the glittering room. Leah looked down at the rock, not looking very impressed. In fact, she hadn't looked impressed at all during the trip. I was trying to ask this girl to marry me today, and yet I was at a loss of how to bring it up. Before we arrived, I had this all planned out in my head, but now it was a blank.
I want to leave,
Leah said a few seconds after we arrived in the dead end of sparkling walls. I expected her to be impressed at least by a small amount. Even if you didn't like rocks, the sight of the glimmering wall should be enough to move even the most stubborn of people to a positive emotion. My heart sank, and I was certain that I wasn't going to get to the question that day. I needed to regroup and think of a different plan. Alright, let's meet up with Tabby and Jason. My voice sounded small and defeated. I put a hand into my pocket, feeling the ring box, promising I would think of a better plan. It just needed more time, and I should relax. For whatever reason, today was just not my day. We walked down the same way we took to get to the dead end, and somehow got turned around. There was a spot where the path forked into three ways. We took the left one to get into the inner dead-end chamber, and should have just walked right out back into the forked area and towards the path with the light. There was no path with light coming from it. I stayed on the left side, thinking it felt right, only for us to loop back around to the forked path yet again. I gave a nervous laugh over my shoulder to a very unimpressed Leah. She tapped her foot, and I decided on the right side, and we looped back again. Checking my phone, I wanted to text Tabby asking her for a map, but my phone refused to go past the lock screen. I assumed it was maybe something in the rocks messing with it. We already took the two side openings, so logic would say the middle would lead us out.
We're never going to get out of here.
Leah whined. I didn't blame her for getting a bit annoyed and whiny. We had been trapped in the dark for at least half an hour now. I just didn't understand how it was possible. There were only a few forks in the path. One was bound to lead out. I was positive that the middle path was the way out, but now I wasn't so sure. As we rounded the corner, I saw the dagger-shaped rock, and my heart sank. The rocks glittered in my dim flashlight. We ended up where we started at the end of the path.
See, I told you.
Leah hissed, frustrated. She dug in her massive purse and pulled out a pack of cigarettes. She promised to quit. Now wasn't the time to remind her. I didn't care if she was still smoking, but I didn't think it was wise for her to light up inside the old mine. Who knows if there was old gas still inside? Wasn't that a major issue all mines had? Maybe you shouldn't smoke in here? I told her meekly.
Give me one good reason.
She replied sharply. I didn't have one. I suddenly felt on the spot for my lack of knowledge about mines. I'd only taken her here because I thought it would be pretty. Feeling guilty for the whole situation we found ourselves in, I turned away from her. Looking over the shimmering wall, I started to second-guess myself about how many paths this mine really had, and if it was possible I'd missed one in the dark. A sound from behind us made me tense up. I was just about to check my cell phone for the 1,000th time and nearly dropped it when I heard soft footsteps coming down the tunnel. It wasn't Leah's, I could tell that much. I turned on my heel, shining a flashlight down the dark path, wondering what I would see. It sounds silly that I expected anything but a person. Being underground plays with your imagination. My beam of light landed on a boy, blonde hair standing out in the dark, big blue eyes staring over at us. He was wearing flip-flops, so that was the source of the strange walking footsteps. His t-shirt looked at least 5 sizes too big for his frame. He couldn't be any older than 13, if that. Leah gave him a side eye and didn't acknowledge him. Hey little guy, what are you doing down here? I should have asked about the way out, but the moment I saw him, I was more worried about a child being alone.
Mushroom collecting.
He answered back in a small voice. I looked at him, confused. He opened his hand to show off a mushroom that looked like the same texture of the rock glittering walls. Lifting his long shirt, he put the mushroom in a baggy side pocket of his shorts.
What are you two doing down here?
He asked, looking between us.
Clearly we're having fun.
Leah snapped. She dropped the last of her cigarette and stomped on it with her heel. I ignored her bad attitude and wished she would tone it down so she wouldn't scare the kid away. We got lost, actually. Could you show us the way out, please? I asked in a sweet tone, hoping it would counter Leah's. The boy gave us a long stare, then nodded. I thanked him, and we started to follow him down the path. I tried to take Leah's hand, but she pulled hers away, still angry over being lost.
Why are we trusting a kid to get us out?
She said, not even trying to whisper. Because he knows the way. It doesn't matter if he's a kid or not.
Alright, fine. Don't snap at me.
I didn't think I raised my voice. She was stressed, so anything would feel like an attack. We all walked in silence as we went down the dark path. I started to hope that the way out was near when I felt some whiffs of fresh air against my face. Now that I was noticing them, I thought I saw more mushrooms camouflaged within the rocks. I'd never seen mushrooms like that before and would ask about them when we got out.
There is no way this kid is going to get us out.
Leah muttered under her breath.
This way.
I just realized I never asked the boy his name. We turned a corner and I stood in shock, mouth open. Before us was a dead end I hadn't seen before. This didn't make any sense. We should have made it to the trail with the 3 pathways. I even walked up to the solid wall of rock, placing my hand against it to see if it was real. That doesn't make sense, I said finally.
I told you he would get us lost.
Leah was at the end of her robe. She walked off in a huff, digging out her smokes again, and starting to fiddle with her useless cell phone. I turned my attention to the boy who looked a bit too calm for being around 2 stressed out adults. What's your name? I asked him. I might not know the way out, but I could at least start with what information I could learn. He opened his mouth to answer, then shut it again. Clearly, he didn't trust strangers with his name. I didn't blame him. The poor thing must be scared being trapped with us. How about a nickname? I'm Jamie. He fidgeted and debated on what name he should give me. Finally, he decided on one. Blue eyes looking up at me, mostly hidden behind wavy blonde hair.
Ian,
He said in a small voice. That's a good name. I like it. We'll get you home, Ian. Don't worry. How about we head back and see if we somehow missed a pathway in the dark? I asked and offered my hand. Holding a child's hand was just a normal reaction. I didn't even think about how it would make him feel more awkward around me. When I realized my mistake, I started to draw it back, but Ian took it before I did. He looked perfectly fine holding onto a stranger's hand. In fact, he seemed kind of excited and hiding it very poorly. Someone should talk to him about trusting strange men in caves. When we got him to his parents, I would mention it. Leo looked back at us, disgusted.
we're not having one of those, so don't get used to it.
She said harshly, and this time took the lead. In that moment, I really wondered what I'd ever seen in her. I chided myself for the thought. She was just stressed out and normally not like this. I gave Ian what I thought to be a comforting smile, and we started to walk. And walk. My phone clock kept glitching out and looping backwards, so I had no idea how long we walked for. Ian gave no complaints. I started to get worried. I only expected a short walk and brought no supplies. I suppose when people noticed us missing, this place would be swarming with rescue workers, but how long would that take? Didn't it only take 3 days without water to die? If my phone was working, I could look that up. Hell, if it was working, we would be out of here by now. We came with some friends. They left before us, and when they see we didn't come out, they'll send someone. I told Ian, trying to comfort him.
As if. I bet those two just went right home and they are finished dinner and in a nice warm bed by now.
Leah snapped behind us, her voice echoing. Please, let's not do this right now. I was completely embarrassed over how she was acting. Shuffling Ian behind me, I didn't want him to hear her, but it was impossible in the small space.
Do what? Fight? Because you have it coming. Why did you even bring me down to this shitty place? If you were going to propose, why didn't you take me somewhere normal?
In her rage, she took off one of her shoes and threw it at me. She missed. Her little temper tantrum was pathetic. Still, I was hurt by it. You knew? I asked, the ring box feeling like 100 pounds in my pocket.
Duh. Hand it over.
She held out her hand, expecting. What?
The ring. Hand it over. I should at least get it after suffering through all of this.
I felt a slight tug on the back of my shirt. Ian was peeking from behind me, staring at Leah, barely hiding the disgusted look that matched the one she'd given him earlier. I put a hand on his back, feeling a bit sorry that he was stuck hearing such a drama. I didn't bring the real one. I just have a fake cheap one because the one I ordered didn't come in yet. I lied. She let out a huff of anger and started down the path again, now missing a shoe. She stopped in a few feet, just trying to be away from me. Ian gave me a hint of a smile. I think he was proud that I didn't give in to her demands. I picked up Leah's shoe and gave it a soft toss toward her. I could do that much. He silently agreed to take a break. Leah was chain-smoking through her pack up front of us, and me and Ian sat down against the hard stone wall. I'm sorry. He gave me a little shake of his head and rested his cheek on his knees, staring down at where Leah was for a few minutes. He looked back over at me.
Is that why you came down here? To ask her to marry you?
Yes, but I swear she's never like this. I told him, my face flushing in the dark.
Have you ever had any fights or gotten in trouble like this?
Yes, and I didn't understand what he was getting at. Well, no.
Then how do you know what she's like under stress? I guess it would be nice to be with someone and never having any issues, but if you do, then how are you going to deal with your partner going out of control when you never experienced it?
How old was this kid? He looked a lot younger than the words he was saying. I thought his generation watched video games and not people dealing out relationship advice. Are you speaking from experience over there? I joked with him. He let out a small smile and his expression went back to the serious one again. He looked as if he was debating on telling me something.
How do you think your two friends got out of here?
Yes, still not taking his eyes off of where Leo was. They took the right path? I said, stating the obvious.
You thought we were going the right way when I started to guide you. What changed your mind?
His blue eyes shifted towards mine, and I suddenly felt uncomfortable. There was a change in the air surrounding him in a way I just couldn't place. I couldn't meet his gaze and looked away, trying to remember what happened when we ran into the dead end. I said, honestly. Everything that happened just got muddled in my head.
Then pay attention the next few times.
Standing up, he waited for me to follow him. This all was strange. Until that point, I just thought we got lost naturally, but now it felt like other forces were at work. I was uneasy, but still wanted to trust the boy. I gave him a small nod and followed him. We're going to try looking for a way out again. I called down to Leah, only to get a very rude answer back.
Just walk. She'll follow us or not.
I almost felt bad for her. She swore at us and hurried after getting delayed to put her other shoe back on. We started walking again. This time I felt as if Ian really did know the way out. But I didn't know what he was trying to prove or show us. With him leading the way, I yet again felt the slight breeze of fresh air and hope stirred, only to have it come crashing down.
I told you, he's just a kid. I bet he got us more lost in the first place.
Leah's voice whined behind us. I turned to tell her off when I ran directly into a wall. I bounced off, landing on my backside painfully. Swearing, I looked up to see a dead end I should have noticed long before slamming into it. I heard Leah whining behind me, but I didn't even pay attention to her. I dropped my trusty flashlight. It flickered, but kept lit. I picked it back up to look over the wall, wondering how it seemed to appear out of nowhere. Then, to my horror, realized I didn't see Ian.
This way.
Shining my flashlight down the narrow pathway, I saw the boy behind Leah. That didn't add up. How did he get behind us so fast? She let out a small scream, noticing Ian in the dark. He took off, disappearing, and I got up to follow him. Leah protesting behind me, we both fumbled along, quickening our pace following his footsteps in the dark. And we kept running into dead ends. No matter which way we went, they all ended in rock walls. We didn't take a new pathway or turn. It was all on straight line both ways, but we kept hitting the blocking walls in different places. It was just guesswork because our phones both stopped working. One wall felt like 5 minutes of walking before we hit another. Then we would turn to walk a few seconds before arriving at a wall that was not there before. Leah was complaining the entire time, in near tears. She raged about me being the reason why we're stuck. I heard Ian's footsteps just beyond where my flashlight would reach. Finally, I needed to stop and slumped against the wall. Leah sobbing off somewhere close by. I was getting dehydrated. Doing this without water was taxing on my body. Small footsteps stopped in front of me and Ian appeared. He sat down, cheek on his knees, looking me over again. How do we get out? I asked him with a pleading tone in my voice.
I can't tell you outright. I'm already late and someone is going to be worried about me. But I can give you hints.
I really didn't know who Ian was. He didn't even seem human at that point. But I was going to take any help I could get. I sat, flashlight gripped in my hand, the small amount of light the only comfort.
How do you think your two friends got out?
He asked again. I groaned, still not understanding. Because they took the right path, I answered.
They took what they thought was the right path.
He corrected. I stared at him. It really couldn't be that simple. It just couldn't be. He looked down into the dark where Leah was crying and cursing to herself, and I was embarrassed it took me so long to clue in. We were trapped because Leah keeps saying we're going the wrong way? Ian rolled his head on his knees a little, making it hard to tell if he was agreeing with me or not. Sure, the first time he was showing us the way out, Leah doubted it, but it just could not be that simple. The world doesn't work like that. There are the right paths and the wrong paths. Dead ends just don't appear because one person thinks they're trapped.
I'm not talking about the way out here. Let me make that clear. I'm not saving you. I'm just giving you an example of how things work. If someone has decided to be miserable, sometimes you cannot change their mind. They'll only burden you, dragging you down. Your friends walked out together. Are you and Leah together right now?
Ian asked, sounding serious. Who thought being trapped inside an abandoned mine was the same as being trapped in a terrible relationship? I understood what he was getting at, but I just couldn't leave her. I can't leave her behind, I told him, eyes cast downwards.
Then you'll die.
He didn't sugarcoat his words. Standing up, he looked down at me, waiting for a few seconds before starting to walk down the dark pathway away from us. His little flip-flops echoing in the darkness. Sitting, I listened to both his footsteps going towards what I knew now to be the way out, and Leah's soft crying. She either didn't hear us or didn't care. If I left her, she might never get back out. I would be leaving her to die. If I didn't, I would die here with her. She wouldn't have a second thought about leaving me behind. I knew that much. My decision was made only after I realized if one of us got out, we could send help to retrieve the one still lost. Getting up, I followed behind Ian. It was simple as that. I expected to see the right path down, and I was out. The setting sun blinding me as I walked out of the cave. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and my friends did in fact start heading to their car and wanted to see if I was out yet and needed a ride home. I frantically called them, saying Leah was still stuck inside. My entire body turned to ice when both of my friends had no idea who I was talking about. Awkwardly getting them off the line, I started to go through my photos to see none of Leah. No Facebook account, no message, nothing. She was not only missing, she was just gone. The ring still in my pocket is the only proof she was real to at least one person.
You got out. Good for you.
I looked over to my side and saw Ian standing a few feet away from me. Because of the light of the sunset, his hair looked almost white, and his blue eyes took on a reddish tint. After everything, I knew he wasn't human, and yet, I didn't know what he could possibly be. Is she gone forever? I asked. I did fall out of love with her inside that cave, but that didn't change the fact that I loved her at some point. I didn't want her to just fade away like this.
It's up to her. All she needs to do is walk forwards. Even if she does get out, you really shouldn't marry her. You're not a good match.
I felt awful, but still let out a small chuckle at his honesty. I still had one more question for him. Why did you save me? At any point, Ian could have just left us behind. He gained nothing by getting me out of that cave. After my question, he fidgeted with the hem of his shirt and mumbled something I didn't hear. He finally looked and was acting his age. Any kind of intimidating air from him was gone.
I didn't save you. You figured it out on your own. And don't hold someone's hand just after meeting them. They might get attached.
Ian snapped, face flushed in the red light. He didn't sound angry, just embarrassed. It took everything I had to not laugh at him. My eyes filled with tears, holding in snorts. The only reason why I was alive is because I treated Ian so kindly. For some reason, he must not have people offer to hold his hand often enough for it to be a treat when it happened.
And I didn't save you,
he shouted, face still red, and gave a sharp point in my direction. He stomped one foot and started to huff away, knowing there was no way for him to regain his composure around me. Thank you for not saving me, I called after him. I only saw his back, but I think it made him even more embarrassed. Some time has passed since then. I never found out if Ian was his real name or what he was. I'm still very thankful he showed up when he did. I still go by the mine entrance waiting to see if Leah comes out. If she does, I'm not going to date her, but at least I'll still be around to support her and keep her life on track. It might be because I feel guilty, but I guess the reason doesn't matter. I hope you enjoyed that one. That was another story from U/02321. I call him Zero. So yeah, another one. This is an older one of his. It's still in the Silver King universe. Ian was a Silver King. I say a because they shift hands every now and then. I'm not sure if I found the flip-flop sound. If I did, great. If I didn't, I'm sorry that it sounded like sneakers in the cave. I did my best. But I like this story. I usually like Zero's stories. And I hope you did too. I know I'm trying to give my thoughts on these stories, but I don't know what thoughts to give other than, yeah, maybe he shouldn't be with that woman. Granted, such a 180 turn like that, especially if she knew she was going to get proposed to, was kind of wild. That doesn't make sense. But, you know, if you meet someone like that, run away. Never look back. You'll be happier. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one, or talk to you in the next one. Much love. Ego, Volt, Anima, Vestra.